and Aage, we welcome you to join our mastermind group as we explore the higher realms and the unknown. Today we present to you the Seekers of the World, the new and global forum for knowledge and wisdom. We and our guests will try to unveil the secrets of the universe, as well as the small day-to-day things that make our life better. We will delve into the hidden and banned medical cures, future science, universal success principles, the self-aware universal consciousness, the real power of the mind, spiritual concepts, and the nuts and bolts of higher conscious thinking, and whatever you like to talk about. Because of the vibration of the show, just by listening, you will be raised to a higher level of consciousness, and we as the host promise you a journey like none you've ever been on. Sit back, put your feet up, and allow for the hidden, the strange, and the unusual to come to you. Hello, hello. Well, I want to welcome you, everybody out there, wherever you are in the world, to another hour of some of the stuff that you are not supposed to know about right here on the Universal Consciousness Show. My name is Aage, and I'm one of the hosts, and sitting over in Germany, I have Diana, the co-host, with me. And are you there, Diana?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, everybody.
All right, and I guess she'll be interviewing me this time because I'm the guest. And that doesn't happen every day, but we're going to try to talk about something that will maybe even open up the minds of maybe at least one, or maybe possibly two out there. And there's going to be a few people that don't like to hear it, but that's okay. And we have a subject that is very sensitive because there's this concept out there called don't talk about religion and politics to anybody because that's how you lose your friends. Well, yeah, well, that's true, but we're going to talk about religion and not necessarily politics so much tonight, but we're going to talk about the difference between religion and spirituality. Because they're not the same thing. Totally different. Different concept, different rules of operation, and different mindsets. And they are very different people. Now, the United Nations, they did a survey or investigation many years ago, and they found that there is some 3,000 religions here on Earth. And when it comes to that, aren't you lucky that you are the only one that have the right religion and everybody else has the wrong one? Oh gosh, you're lucky. It's just that you were happened to be born into the right one, and everybody else is stumbling around, and all and every one of them are going to go to hell. Well, maybe it isn't that way necessarily. Now, most religions, they have a god or they have gods. And I don't know, I think I know any religion that doesn't have one because it's one of the requirements to be a religion. So what's a god? And where does the word God come from? That's a good one. And some of us think we know the answer to that. Well, the old written records of the Sumerian tablets, they explain where the word God comes from. Now, in the Sumerian language, the word God means great leader. Actually, the way they wrote it and pronounced it is more like God, or they could be pronounced possibly Gu'ud. I'm not so sure. It's not clear from the writing. but let's for all practical purposes call it God tonight. So when the Sumerian kings told the people, "We are your gods," and they wanted to be worshipped, they were pretty big-headed people, stuck up actually. Now they were right about that. They were the people's great leaders. And to worship, if you look up the definition on it, that means to hold in high regard or reverence. See, the word God was given a meaning it was never meant to have. And the same thing was with the word angel. In the Sumerian language, in cuneiform, the word angel means messenger. So, when an angel from God came and talked to me, like some of the prophets said, I have no problem with that. A messenger from our great leader came and talked to me. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Now, some of the holy books, they did not necessarily lie about everything, because they created a new language, kind of like a religious language, somewhat similar to the language of laws called legalese. The words look the same, but it doesn't mean the same. And it was all done to control the people. This religious language, it spread, and it had different meanings for the different religions. So it created a lot of confusion out there. The two major religions in the Western world is Christianity and, of course, the Muslims. And I think that maybe there is some confusion about what the two of them are. Let's start with maybe the Christian religion first. Where did it come from? Everybody says that Jesus was a Christian. No, he wasn't. He was a fanatical Jewish prophet. Even the Muslims recognize him as a prophet. And there is a lot of confusion about Jesus, because some people say he didn't even exist because there is no record of him anywhere in the official records except for the Bible. Well, there actually is. So the Christian religion was not created in 32 or 37 when he died. Or they say he died. There is much evidence, and I write about that in my book, actually, who says he survived there is written records to that effect, 2 old ones that has been buried by the Catholic Church. The Bible was created in 325 in Constantinople, Turkey, as we call it today, Nicaea back then. You see, the Roman Empire was slowly collapsing. And there was small uprising on the borders everywhere. And Emperor Constantine was worried. He looked at the Jews and he saw how they were all consolidated. They did not fight among themselves. And they protected each other under one religion. And he wanted that for his empire. So he ordered some 223 people, scholars of the time. They were priests and scribes, and they sent them to Nicaea to create a religion that would unite his empire. And what he told them is that go to Nicaea, create a religion that will unite my empire, and do not emerge until you have done so. And they did. And they started talking, and there were quite a few people that said, no, this is not right. It doesn't work this way. The written records of the time, they do not show Jesus as anything special. So they were removed from the meetings, and they were, in the diplomatic way, done away with. And the remaining, the 223, I believe it was, they went through actually took them several years, a couple of 3 years, and they went through 9,000 scrolls, old writings, tablets, and old writings that spiritual nature and political nature. And they took these writings, and they picked and chose from the writings. They rewrote the original, and then they burned the original. Because now they have a new document, and they call that the original. And that is what was taken and put into the Bible.
So does that mean that we don't have some evidence from the old writings? Everything was destroyed?
Much of it was destroyed. There were some of them that was saved, but there was very few, because they did not want any conflict with in the new writing that they created, with other words, the Bible. Now, how do I know this? Well, there is some written records of it. The minutes from the meetings at Constantinople, Turkey, they survived. And in there, they write about how they picked and chose from these old scrolls and everything that they went through. They burned the original, and the new writing became the original. And there is a record of this, and you can probably get your hand on it. Several decades ago back in Europe, I had one in my hands, and I read it, and I saw how they created the Bible. In fact, I got it from Oxford University Press, which is the library press division of Oxford University, of course. And if you contact them, they just might have it for you, or chances are, of course, the Christian religion is the state church, so they may not necessarily want to give it to you anymore, but the best thing to do is to go and research it, because they have it. In fact, they told me that, that's in the archives in the basement, so you got to go and dig through stuff to find it. Another place you can find that document that explains how the Bible was created is at the Topkapi Museum in Istanbul, Turkey. Now, the Muslims, they're probably going to be more apt to give you a copy of it, because it kind of takes, maybe explain their religion a little better. And you will find that this meeting in Constantinople, Turkey, was not a religious meeting at all. It was very much a political meeting. And the 9,000 scrolls that they went through, that was pretty much, it was controlled and directed by 3 or 4 of the leaders of the meeting. Not everything was approved to be gone through. And now, after that, they have gone through all of this. They had a vote. And the vote was if they should give this man Jesus, or Yahshua, what's his name, first name. Excuse me. If they should give him deity status. Now, there were 3 people that voted no, because they said, we have not seen anything that makes this Jesus anything but a man. So they said no, and they were immediately taken, and it was told that they were excommunicated out of the Roman Empire to the very northern borders of it. That's in northern Germany now, I guess. And they were left up there because they did not want them around. I have a sneaky suspicion something else was done to them, but this is what was told. And then, of course, it was approved that he had deity status, and the religion was created, but they still could not agree on a lot of the things in it. They were still arguing about it. So they kind of put it on hold, and it was about some 90 years later at the Council of Hippo when it was declared as the official religion of the Roman Empire, or the Middle East, or anywhere where there were Christians. Now, Emperor Constantine, he never accepted the Christian religion until he was on his deathbed. And they were, from what it is written about that, they basically just told him this is what you're going to do, and he nodded his head, and he was then a Christian. Because he knew what he had done, he knew what he had created. So let's ask ourselves another question, and we're going to do that right after this break. Let's see if we can do a little break here, about 2 minutes, and then we will come back.
Beacon of Light Radio, its hosts, employees, advertisers, and affiliates are not responsible for actions taken by listeners before, during, after, or as a result of listening to broadcast. All content is strictly for entertainment, educational, or advertising purposes and should not be used to make life decisions or as a substitute for medical, psychiatric, or legal advice or care. The opinions of the host and advertisers are not necessarily the opinions or stance of the station. Listeners agree by hearing or reading this disclaimer to listen at their own risk, be 18 years of age, or have the permission to listen and or call in from a legal guardian, and agree to hold Beacon of Light Radio faultless from any and all repercussions of listening or participating in a broadcast.
Don't miss The Beacon with Jennifer Falah, the show that shines a light through the dark, educates, and empowers those searching for hope. Learn about the levels of heaven, how to positively create, and to meditate to build a stronger connection to the divine. Join Jennifer as she shares information acquired through communication with archangels, interdimensional meditation, and years of psychic experience and research. Tune in each Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for this empowering show, only on beaconoflightradio.com.
Aage?
Hello, we are back with the Universal Consciousness Show, and we are talking about religion and spirituality. Now, just hang in there with us, folks. We're going to get to the spiritual part also, but there's a little more about religion that needs to explain so we can understand where all this come from, because there's so much confusion out there. Let's talk a little more about this man called Jesus. Of course, we know that wasn't his name, because the letter J was created out of absolutely nowhere as a declaration by the Pope in around 1500, because there was confusion in the language between the H and the sounds that sounded like J, so he made it the declaration saying that we have a new letter called J. Okay, so that was not his name. Well, this Jesus was a phenomenal man. And he did teach love for all the people, except the Roman soldiers. So, how do we know that? And how do we really know anything about him besides what is written in the Bible? Well, there are written documents out there that swear up and down that he never existed. There are books about it. There's been radio shows on it. But there is enough information out in antiquity that show that there was this man, and he is this man that we now call Jesus. Because we find that the scholars of the time, they did not dare to speak much of what the Romans did not like either. So there was censorship, and they did not write a lot about the things that he said or did. And the Jewish people, they were scared of showing that they had solidarity with him, because if the Romans found out that they were a sympathizer of somebody that was opposed to the Romans, that was illegal, and pretty much anything back then had the death penalty on it. So that was kind of scary. Now, what was Jesus's name? We call him Jesus, but it was Joshua. One of the names that he used was Joshua bin Joseph. And that makes sense, because bin Joseph, that means son of Joseph. Now, there's another book out also that says, did Jesus live 1000 BC? Because there is a record of a man that lived 100 BC. Where did I get 1000 from? 100 BC. He was teaching love for all the people. He was a hardcore vegetarian, and he would not kill anything on purpose. He was an effective healer. He could wake up the dead, and there are several incidents explain when he did. But he also told them that if the person has been dead for more than 1 day, I cannot help him. So he also told people, your life is not real. It is only a dream. And he was seen to walk on water. He was seen in 2 places at the same time. They were long distances apart. He had a very large following. And they claimed he was the Messiah, which we call Messiah. He was also crucified by the Romans. And he was seen after his death by many people on many occasions. And he told the people that I will return. Does this sound familiar? No, it was not this Jesus that lived 100 BC. It was another man, the leader of the Essenes at the time. And there was a man with no name. He did not use a name. He was just called the teacher of righteousness. And it's written about him in the Dead Sea Scrolls, in the Qumran Scrolls. Now, this is worthy of thinking on. Let your mind run with it a little bit. We know for a fact that Jesus was not his name. There's also another confusing figure who lived in that time, right about that time. His name was Emmanuel. And there's even less written about him. But he was not Jesus either. And this Messiah, that was a title that was used for several people during several hundred years, because they hoped that he was the one that would come and unite and bring back the Jewish state. And I love it when I hear somebody tell me that I have a special relationship with Jesus. And when that happened, I just can't help it. I have to say something like, wow, you're even better connected than I am. What was his last name? I haven't found anybody yet that can tell me that. I get some strange answers, though. And some of them, last name was Christ. No, that wasn't Christ. That is a derivative of a title. And then I said, no, nobody's supposed to know what the last name was. That's another answer I get once in a while. So, well, I know the last names. I guess I'm a nobody. It happens to be a record of the last name. When the Romans found out that this man was traveling around Judea, speaking against the Romans, trying to get the Jews to take up arms against the Roman and drive them out of Judea, and of course they had a very dim view of that, they wanted to have him arrested and charge him with political agitation. And of course that had the death penalty. So they wanted him arrested, and they issued a wanted poster for him. Guess what? That wanted poster has survived. And it describes what he looked like, and it explains that he used 3 names. Joshua bin Joseph is one of them. Joshua Beth Halachmeh was another one, because Halachmeh was Joseph's last name. And then he was called, well, pretty much accurate, Joshua the Nasorian. When I put the word the Nasorian in there, is that because I don't know the exact word for it. Joshua, he was a Nasorian. That's what he was called also. Not Jesus from Nazareth. Nazareth wasn't even a town back then. It was just a farming community. So what is a Nasorian? It is an offshoot of the Essenes, a fanatical religious sect preaching the Jewish, and I repeat, the Jewish faith. Or more so, the Hebrew faith. And then there was an offshoot off of that. They called themselves the Nazorians. They were also an offshoot off of the Nazorians. Underneath that, they called themselves the Zealots. The Zealots, the several of the so-called disciples that Jesus was supposed to have, were zealots. They were freedom fighters. They were patriots, more or less. They were swordsmen, assassins. They often staked out Roman soldiers and jumped on them and killed them. They wanted to put fear into the Romans so they would stay in their barracks and not be out harassing the people. So their favorite thing to do was to catch up with a Roman soldier by himself in an alley somewhere and cut his throat. Now, these were not necessarily peace-loving people. And both Judases, which is Judas Iscariot and Judas Thaddeus, they're said to be members of that group. And all the indications from what the old writing says that is not in the Bible says that Joshua also was a freedom fighter. He tried to create an uprising against the Romans. He advocating using the sword against the Romans. And he's even quoted in the Bible saying something like, if you have 2 coats, sell one and buy a sword. And it is known that the people of Judea were scared to associate with Jesus because he was speaking against the Romans. So this was a very tricky time, and I think we are getting up to close to another break here. So what we see is that this Jesus was a totally different man than what we have been led to believe. And he was a guy that I think I would like. He was a freedom fighter, and he was a healer. We know that. That is also in the old records written about him. There are quite a few things that has been leaked actually from the Catholic Church. And there is another document that I know of, and I'm going to mention that one before we go to the break. And that is the one that was, Jesus wrote this paper in his defense when he was put on trial. And in there he says, I am not a god. I am just a man with God's, with the mind of God inside of me. So there is quite a bit different than what we have led to believe. So for right now, let's go to a little break again for 2 minutes, and then we'll be right back.
Okay.
Tune in Tuesday evenings at 7 p.m. Pacific Time for The Soul's Edge, nourishing mind, body, and spirit. An hour twice a week dedicated to you. Host Jeanette Dames brings you information, guests, and angels to help you find the best way to nourish your mind, body, and spirit. Healthcare professionals, both traditional and Western, bring you information to keep you up and running. Authors from self-help to famous fiction chat about their inspiration and share it all with you. Local, national, and international speakers help you remember how to fill your spirit with love and peace. And on every show, Jeanette will help you get in touch with your angels. You are invited to call in during the show with your questions for Jeanette or her guests. Tune in every Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. Pacific Time, right here on Beacon of Light Radio. And visit Jeanette's Facebook page, The Soul's Edge, for updates and highlights of past and upcoming shows.
Are you plagued by nightmares, negative self-talk, depression, anxiety, or even strange occurrences in your home? You may need an energy cleanse healing or house cleanse to clear this from your life. Marcy Howell is a divine healer who can help you remove these negative energies from your body and space, as well as help you communicate with a loved one who has passed to find closure. If you are seeking a fresh start and outlook on life, contact Marcy Howell at divinehealings.co or find her on Facebook.
Welcome to Beacon of Light Radio, a guiding light in the storm of life. Do you want to connect with inspirational spiritual guests? Have fun while quenching your thirst for metaphysical teachings. Then set a reminder for Kimla & Company with host Kimla Dodds, international best-selling author, psychic medium, astrologer, and feng shui practitioner, every Thursday evening, 6 p.m. Pacific Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Come be a part of the show by joining us in the chat room or calling in for support or a free reading. We are waiting for your light on Kimla & Company. Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Beacon of Light Radio. And until then, may the angels protect you and guide you.
Hello. We're back with the Universal Consciousness Show, and I'm Aage. We're talking about the difference between religion and spirituality. And we haven't gotten to the spirituality yet, but we will, so hang in there with us. I talked about the Christian religion before, how it was created and some of its history. I think maybe I should not discriminate, so I should mention some about the Muslims also. And that was about 1400 years ago that kind of came around, and Muhammad had an experience. He had a visitation, and I believe he did, and it was a good one. And he did not know how to read or write, so he had to tell people about this, and it was over the next many years after that it was compiled. What he or who he met or came and visited him told him quite a bit about how to be a spiritual man. And after that visitation, for the next 12 years, Muhammad tried to create this belief system and this religion based on spirituality, pure love. It was a good belief system. It was sound. It was based on love. And he could not convert anybody. He was living in Mecca and nobody there wanted to follow him. They thought he was an idiot and they shunned him. The only people Muhammad was able to convert to this new religion of love was his family. And he evidently wanted more than that, so he figured that if I moved to Medina, that was the business hub of the Jewish community. The Jews, they have a solid religion, and he figured if I can convert some Jews, maybe the people at home will also believe me. So he went over there and he changed his teaching to fit in with the Jewish. They did not eat pork, and he did not then eat pork. And they created a lot of different similarities with the Jewish religion. And he tried to convert the Jews. And, you know, that's kind of like teaching a cat how to bark, you know, that just don't work very well. And he was totally unsuccessful. So he came back and he got very resentful against the Jews because they made fun of him. And then he changed his religion again to demonize the Jews. He made them sound like monkeys and dogs and filth. And then he added everybody that did not believe in the Muslim, then now called Muslim religion, they were filth. He changed it so it more gave people power, physical, mental power over others. And that's when it took off, because people liked that. They like that if other people don't believe like I do, I'm going to kill you. Back then, 1400 years ago, that maybe kind of made sense. So from there on, the Muslim religion has actually encompassed and conquered more land than the Roman Empire ever did. They expand into a new area and they cleaned it. There is records of 240 million people being killed by the Muslim religion globally. The Christians, they are small potatoes compared to that. I don't think they get more than 60. So this is somehow how religions turn out. They change it to control people. Now, spirituality is a totally different thing. It is based on love, like Muhammad had for the first 12 years. And much of what this Joshua Beth Halachmeh taught while he was still alive. So we can ask ourselves, could it be that we are spiritual beings with unlimited creative power and the kingdom of heaven is within us and we are gods? Could it be? Could it be?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And hey, don't run off yet, folks. For for my Bible reading friends out there, look this up. In Luke 17:21, it says, "The kingdom of heaven is within you." It doesn't say it's above you or in Texas. I know they say it's God's country in Texas, but I don't know. It is everywhere within you. And then check out in Psalms 82:6. It says, "You are God's." And you will find that in John's also. So could it be that we are God's? The kingdom of heaven is within us. And since we are God's, we can create anything we want by going within into that kingdom of God. Visualize it into existence. Does that explain why we should go and meditate? To go within? And the Bible even, well, most Christians that say, "Oh, we don't meditate, that's of Satan." Well, no, it isn't. The Bible speaks of it. They just call it something different. Do you remember that religious language? They say, "Be still." They don't mean sit still in your chair. They mean your mind being still. So if we are Gods with unlimited creative capability, and the kingdom of heaven is within us, not above us or somewhere in space, there is no limitations to what we can do if our mind accepts that. See, religions have led us to believe that heaven is above us because that's where the Sumerian gods came from. The great leaders that later also created us, or some of us. They had bodies just like us. They were a little taller, 9 to 12 feet tall, but just like us. There is a written record of, how we were created. And there was just found in not just one place, but in several places through the Middle East. And they explain the same thing on how we were created. And they use the same language that is written up in the Bible, in Genesis later on. The method explained to create man sounds just like Genesis when they speak about how we were created. It speaks of the two twisted ropes of life being taken apart. Some of the substance of the creature they started with, which was probably a bipedal Homo sapiens sapiens, which was in the area 400 and some 90 years ago, or 400,000 years ago. They removed some of the qualities of the gods and gave of their own substance to put into the two twisted ropes of life. But they withheld some of the qualities, like long life, knowing what is in the other's mind, and things like that. Because we know the people that came down was the Anunnaki. And they lived basically forever. There is written records in the Sumerian tablets of the same people being around for 70,000 years, and several, 2 or 3 people they speak of that was around for 400,000 years. So you look at the king's list, the Sumerian king's list, and that explains it. There were only about 30 kings in 400,000 years. And when they take away some of the qualities of the gods, like long life, that means they lived forever. unless they had an accident. And also knowing what's in the other's mind, that's telepathy. And we are, as a species right now, we are getting some of that back because of the vibration we are going into. Since the Bible is using some of the same exact language as was written in the Sumerian tablets, it is a copy. The Bible is a copy of the earlier text written thousands of years earlier. But of course credited to the people in the Bible and the gods of the Bible. See, religions, they are, there's a good definition here that I just found right before the show, and I'm going to read it to you. Somebody told me that a religion is just a cult that survived its founder. And if we look at the definition of a cult, it fits. It has a supreme being, strong leader, strong ideology, demand absolute submission, demands financial support, and violations of their rules are punished, and special privilege for the leaders. Think about that. It fits both religion and government. Because we have this thing called governmentalism, and that is more like a religion within government, because they believe government is supreme and has all these other qualities. So let's take a little break, and we'll come back and we'll speak more about the spirituality of the universe and what we can do. So let's do that. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
Welcome to Spiritual Soup with Jules and Wendy, where we mix together a pinch of magic, a dash of love, 3 drips of belief, sprinkling some laughter, and we share it with you. Each week, Jules and Wendy will share their experiences and insights about all things spiritual, magical, and mystical. Jules is a best-selling author, an international clairvoyant, medium, and spiritual life coach. Wendy is an international psychic and holistic practitioner whose specialties include Reiki Master, Crystal Practitioner, and Spiritual Advisor. Together, they form the Spiritual Soup Team. Join us Thursday evenings at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern to experience the magic of Spiritual Soup, only on Beacon of Light.
Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, and so does psychic medium Bob Brown. England's renowned paranormal investigator will explore the world of the unknown with special guests that will thrill and expand your mind. Tune in to Over the Rainbow with host Bob Brown every Wednesday and Friday at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, and 8 p.m. in the UK, right here on Beacon of Light Radio.
You're up for a treat, embarking on a journey of love and abundance. Tune in to Universal Treats with intuitive coach and healer Thomas Johansson. Open your mind and heart to reconnect with your divine self and natural birthright. Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, and 8 p.m. Scandinavian Time. Only on Beacon of Light Radio.
Okay.
Hello, and we are back with the Universal Consciousness Show again, and I'm Aage, and we're talking about religion and spirituality. What is the difference?
Aage, let me ask you a question. Now that you demystify all the religion and you demystify Jesus, then can you please tell us who is God then?
Okay, this is the tough one. In religious terms, the God is mostly the ones that have declared themselves to be God. All pharaohs did that, and many others did that. But that's not this thing we call God that has created the universe. And then I go back to the definition in the Bible even, where it says we are gods.
Yeah.
Okay, we are creator gods. We create at our own level, especially in the physical arena. We create everything we see around us. But where do we get the ability to do that from? That goes back to the universal consciousness. When I grew up back in Europe, we were told that God was this old guy. He was sitting in the clouds somewhere on a throne with a whole bunch of people sitting around him, and he had long white hair and he had a long white beard, and he ran everything from up there. Well, of course, that tells me that God was sick because he had gray hair. Having gray hair is a function of copper deficiency and an acid body. So I suggest for God to possibly start taking some, maybe some minerals and a few things like that to get rid of the gray hair. That's not the God that we're talking about. That's an illusion. With the God that created everything around us, through us, is that universal, all-knowing, omnipotent, so to speak, power called the universal consciousness, the self-aware universe. And it gives our spark of life, which we could call the soul, the capability and the will to create everything we see around us, so that this spark of life can have physical experience. The spark of life, or the soul, is spiritual, is a spiritual being. And this spiritual being cannot have experiences in the physical without having a physical body and physical surroundings. So it creates this physical body, or the image of it, and everything we see around us and create experience is created in this holographic illusion created by this spark of life. Because this spark of life is just one part, given a temporary separateness or illusionary separation from the universal consciousness. And we are given a cloak of memory, so we cannot remember everything there is that we have experienced before, because that would influence the decisions and what we would do in this physical existence. Because this spark of life needs to have more and more experiences. It needs to learn. It needs to experience and see and feel. It needs to learn love. And it will keep coming back and coming back by creating a new body when the old one wears out and kind of goes away on you. There's a term for that called death. Until we figure out in this embodiment, until we figure out that all and everything we see around us is an illusionary holographic experience that is created for the purpose of the soul or the spark of life to have experiences so it can learn and grow.
So, in other words, you want to say that we all are different versions from God that He created in order to experience the physical, right?
Yes, I think I understood that. Yes, the God, so to speak, the universal consciousness doesn't have separations of anything. It is one. And we are one with that universal consciousness. But we are given this spark of life, or should I say this spark of life has been given what's the word for it? It's a temporary sensation of separation, so it can experience on its own. And when this life cycle is over, it goes back, if it has figured out how to do that, if it goes back to the universal consciousness again and will share the experience with the one.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't explain where ghosts come from, does it? Because they don't seem like they have gone back anywhere. They're just still hanging around. But that can be thought forms. That may not be the spark of life. These are energy-created thought forms within the hologram. And these thought forms are so powerful and so strong because of the embodiment of that person may have had such attachments to the physical that they do not want to leave. But the spark of life have already left. It leaves that thought form behind. And of course, the spark of life also have the capability of coming back to visit, because it often enjoyed the physical, enjoyed the people, enjoyed the energies that it experienced. So it comes back to visit and takes on the physical form that it had once for easier communication with the people. And that is why we have a direct channel to that universal consciousness. But most of the time it is clogged with all these private conversations that go on in our head. And if we start clearing our mind out using the spiritual language, because regular English or German or Taiwanese, that does not matter out there on the other side of this veil. It doesn't get you anything. The spiritual language is one of emotion, love, intention, vivid, colorful pictures. When you start thinking in those terms, you express what you would want. And you can speak it with it so that it is easier to visualize it. But it is the thought forms that you create in your mind and the emotion that goes with it that leaves the physical, goes out to the universal consciousness and make the request for what you would want to have happen in your life. When you do that, you're going to see a difference in your prayers. In fact, the only one that I know that really taught people how to pray was Moses. And Moses wrote 12 books, and you should look into those. I think that we're getting close to the end of the show here. I want to get people to look at something. Go to I have a website. It's www.aage-nost.com. So it's www.myfirstname-mylastname.com. And there is, I write about these things in there in the blogs. I got one specific blog that you may want to look at. It's called Why Does Most Prayers Go Unanswered? And it speaks of how Moses said, do this and you will have results every time. And in the picture gallery on there, I have a lot of strange pictures you may want to have a look at. There is If you go to page number 17 for your UFO enthusiasts out there, you'll find a simple UFO detector that you'll make. That'll be kind of fun. But there's also the Catholic Church claims to have a picture of Jesus. Now, I know that sounds ridiculous because they didn't have cameras back then, but there is this equipment, and I'm familiar with it. I have studied and I've read about it. And you can create pictures from the quantum by using this equipment. And that was part of what I created. If you go to my website and go into the pictures, you will find 2 pictures that I created that shows me in 2 different times. The pictures are from 2 different timelines at the same time, but the pictures are different. In one picture there's raining and the other one is not, and several other differences. Have a look at that. So this picture that the Catholic Church have of Jesus, it could be just a lead balloon, but the concept is real on how they explain how it was taken. So go on to the picture gallery and you will find it in there. So anyway, I guess we're down to the end here, and join us on the Universal Consciousness Show on Facebook at our group there. Send us a request and you can get in and read everything that we write about. And with that, I guess we are done for this time, and we'll be back next week. And with Diana and I, we will find something else to talk about. So, be a good evening, good morning, or good night, or good day, wherever you are on the globe. We will be back next week. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.